Well, to survive as Liberal leader, Sussan Ley only has to do three things. First, guide her colleagues to make the right call on net zero tomorrow. Second, unite her hopelessly divided party. And third, make sure she keeps the coalition with the Nationals on track. Shouldn't be a problem.
Is she the right leader to go forward for the Liberal Party?
That's what I'm looking for in the next coming days. But it's very clear to me that we need clear leadership to drive through this conversation. It's up to all of us to do that.
That doesn't sound like a key endorsement.
No, I'm happy to endorse the leader. That's not the issue. If we're just going to break into tribal parts without any acknowledgement of the responsibility we hold to each other, we are going to find ourselves boxed into a very difficult position.
You know how I said it shouldn't be a problem? Maybe it's a bit of a problem.
Defence taught me one thing, be a team player, and I don't think we've seen that of late. We've seen now people threaten to quit positions and throw all their toys out of the cot. Once again, the Liberal Party talking about itself, and to those people who want to threaten to quit, then quit. You're not that important anyway. We need to get on with the job, which is creating an alternative for what this government is, and to make sure that we're putting our best policies forward.
Yeah, OK. Sussan Ley's got all sorts of problems. Joining me is One Nation's Chief of Staff, James Ashby, and former Labor councillor, Linda Scott. Welcome to you both. James, I'll start with you. One Nation have surged in the polls on the back of Liberal indecision on net zero and immigration. If Sussan Ley ditches net zero and then comes out strong on curtailing runaway immigration, are you worried the gains you've made will be lost from One Nation?
I don't think so, James. We know that this has been spurred on because of the strong language used by One Nation. We've been decisive on this whole rubbish of net zero ever since it came out. So we've been talking about this for a very long time and making our point very clear to the Australian voters. I think now over that 9 years that we've been telling the Australian public just why their power bills are going up, why the country continues to go into greater debt, why cost of living has been driven higher and higher, people are starting to understand. And for Sussan Ley and her cohort to say anything but, if they were to get into government, they would write a letter which is presented to the ambassador who sits with the UN, present it to the UN and say, we are out. Nothing shorter than that will do, because you can't be half pregnant in this instance. And if you want to be a true leader, Sussan, you need to step up to the plate and say, we're out of Paris, because saying anything less, you're still in. Therefore, you've got to meet these 2050 targets of net zero. That is the end goal of this Paris Agreement that we're a signatory to. The other point I'll point out to you, James, is this. Unless you get out of Paris like the US have done, you cannot alter it. It's as plain and simple as that. You cannot alter it. So if anything, get out and then renegotiate it with a better deal that is done where we can carve out industries that at the moment are being destroyed in this country. Coal mining is one of them. Steel and other manufacturing is being killed as well. And until we get out of Paris, we will see GDP drop when it comes to our manufacturing. We're already a country that's gone from the 50s and 60s where we had 25% of GDP made up of manufacturing down to a lousy 5%. It can't get any worse. Seriously, they have to get out of Paris. That's the only true leadership call that Sussan Ley can make to survive.
Well, speaking of leadership, James, and I agree with you that whatever anyone thinks about net zero, you've got to give One Nation this. You've been consistent the entire time. Pauline Hanson certainly speaks from conviction. But Linda, I think whatever Sussan Ley does, I don't know that anyone will believe that she's really convinced. And it's not just on net zero. I remember when she gave her first speech at the press club, she talked about the need to get more women into the Liberal Party, but then said she was agnostic, not really sure one way or another about quotas. So I feel like she seems to have this problem where you can't quite pin down what she really believes. She's more about consensus and taking the temperature of the room and getting working groups. This is, I think, going to be a problem, whatever way the chips fall on net zero.
Look, sadly, it could be any day of the week, but today of all days on Remembrance Day, when the Liberal Party has yet again not spoken about the contribution of veterans, the incredible historic significance of this day, not just for Remembrance Day, it's obviously also the 50th anniversary of one of the most significant political events in this country, the unjust sacking of Prime Minister Gough Whitlam. And yet all
Why
the
don't
Liberal
you want to
Party
have this
can
debate
do
on net
again
zero,
and
Linda?
again and again is talking
Deflect.
about themselves and their own internal fight. James, I think it's disappointing to hear you continuing with this very unscientific line that we should, pull out of international agreements that we've already committed to. It's very disappointing to hear you persist with these untruths about the fact that this form of moving to renewable energy is somehow anything other than the cheapest, most effective, most science evidence-based way to power Australia moving forward. But yet here we are with One
Very
Nation
misguided
and the
woman
Nationals
you are,
and the
Linda.
Liberals
Very
all
misguided.
united in their disagreement about the cheapest, best way to move forward on energy policy, something that almost every other nation in the world, something Australia signed up to under a conservative agreement, the Paris Accord, and yet here we are, the One Nation, National Party and Liberal Party trying to align themselves together.
James, we were
heard Tim
promised
Wilson admit
cheaper
today
electricity bills by Linda's Labor Party under Albanese, and it's never been delivered.
And we've got
the problem
Chris Bowen
is to put in,
saying
even
that
by
Australians
Labor's
can
own
get
account,
3 hours of
they've
free
got to put in
power.
10,000 kilometres worth of more high transmission voltage power lines. They used to be $2 million a kilometre, mate. They're now $12 to $14 million a kilometre. This is where people's power bills are going up because someone's got to pay for it. And it's all wonderful. I love solar. I've got it on my rooftop. But to go and put them 5,000 kilometres in the middle of nowhere and then have to run these new high transmission power lines to get this power back to the city folk, it's just unachievable. And we're destroying prime agricultural land in the process. We're putting wind turbines all over our picturesque scenery. And yeah, Linda lives in the city, so she doesn't quite understand this. But for people like me who live with a beautiful bush setting behind me, I don't want it demolished. I don't want it demolished for the sake of solar power panels that have a very, very short life. I don't want the treetops demolished for the sake of your wind turbines because it's killing koalas. And Labor themselves have admitted that the best practice when they see a koala fall out of the tree is go and club it to death. This is the nonsense that you and the Greens are putting in the minds of kids to say it's okay to go and trash the environment for your solar panels, but in the same breath, a farmer can't clear so that he can feed the rest of the world. It's just silly. I don't get you.